Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video we are going to actually build out the full logic inside of our voting route to tally the votes. Now let's go ahead and pull that up inside of comics. Scroll down to the votes section. Here we go. Right now all we're doing whenever we get a request is finding a comic and then returning that exact same comic. We're just sending that comic information on as JSON. What we want to do is to tally the user's votes. Now there are two questions that we need answered in order to do that. First we have to check if they voted before, and then we have to check if they submitted an up or a down vote. With those two pieces of information, we can figure out exactly what we want to do with their vote, keeping in mind what we talked about in the beginning, in that if they have not voted before, we just want to tally their vote. If they have voted before, we want to check to see what their previous vote was. If it's the same, we want to remove it entirely. If it's different, we want to change it to the new one. So I'm going to get rid of this console.log because we don't need that anymore. The request.body might still be useful. I'll just leave it for now, and we can deal with that later. So after we get the comic, we need to figure out if they voted. That's pretty simple to do if you remember your array methods, because remember we've already got on the model, we've got an upvotes and a downvotes array. Here it is. And the idea is that we're going to have the usernames right there. So first just check if they've already voted. So const already upvoted is equal to the comic, this comic right here that we're finding, dot upvotes dot index of request dot user dot username. And if you remember, the index of will search through an array to find the index of an item. If it's there, it will return that index, anywhere from 0 all the way up to the length of the array. Or if it's not there, it will return -1. So let's go ahead and just comment that. Will be -1 if not found. And we can duplicate this. Already downvoted comics.downvotes.index of that will be -1 if not found. So these two we can use in our logic to see if they've already voted. So voting the logic. So if already upvoted is equal to -1 and already downvoted is equal to -1, do something. Basically what this is saying is if they have not voted. In other words, if their name is not in the upvoted and their name is not in the downvoted. If they've not already voted, has not voted. Else if already upvoted is greater than or equal to 0. In other words, if previously already upvoted, else if already downvoted is greater than or equal to 0. It's going to be already downvoted. Else error. So that's kind of the step one, where we checked if they've already voted. Inside each of these, we now had to add additional checks to see what to do. So if they've not voted, we need to find out what type of vote they are currently wanting to cast. So if request.body.vote type is equal to up, we need to tally their upvote. Else if request.body.vote type is equal to down, we need to tally that vote, else it's an error. And we need to send some sort of an error message. So we need to do kind of the same thing for already upvoted. So if they've already upvoted, if request.body.vote type is equal to up, else if request.body.vote type is equal to down, else that's going to be the error. And we can just copy paste. Actually, we could have just copy pasted it the last time, but for the already downvoted, we do the same thing. So these are all of our possible outcomes to the vote. And then we just basically have to go through and fill in the logic for each one. Let's just start at the top and work our way down. The user has not voted and they're upvoting. And this one is their downvoting. So if the user has not voted and they are upvoting, we want to comics.upvotes.push request.user.username. So this is adding them onto that array. And then we want to do comic.save, which will save the comic in the actual database. And then we want to respond. Now we could, inside of here, put res.json and send the thing, and then we would have to do res.json, 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 and every single one of these. So instead what I'm going to do, outside of here, outside of the curly brackets, I'm going to let response equal empty object, and then we're just going to update that in each one, and then send it at the very end. So res.json response. So response.message is going to be upvote tallied. So if they're downvoting, we're basically doing the same thing, except instead of upvotes, we're doing downvotes and downvote tallied. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and test these out. Because right now, let's look at our data. Let's refresh, and test is going to be already upvoted, so let's remove them from that. Generally speaking, you don't want to modify data inside of your database directly like this, but for testing purposes, it's fine. Not on a production application. So that's done. No daemon. Let's see if we can vote. Refresh the page, log in as test. Come in here and let's see if we can upvote. Bam. Upvote tallied, and if we refresh this page in the database, we should see test inside of the upvotes array. Bam, right there. So let's delete him or her. I don't know anything about test. And refresh the page, and let's downvote. Downvote tallied, refresh our data and make sure it actually worked. Downvotes, test is in there, and test is not in the upvotes array. Perfect. So those two routes are working as intended. Else, in other words, if they send an error, all I'm going to do is do response.message equals error 1. And that's it for this one. For the has not voted. Let's jump down. So now I'm going to issue you a challenge. Your challenge is to fill in the rest of these. Think through exactly what is going to happen on each one and code it so that it does. For example, already upvoted, if they click upvote again, we want to remove that upvote and that's it. And then we have to send our response. You might send upvote removed or something like that. However, if they're downvoting, we have to remove their upvote and then add a downvote. And then you might set the message to change the vote to downvote or something like that. Else, if there's an error, send an error with a different code. Error 1 is right here, maybe error 2 would be right there. Do the same for downvoted. And then finally right here, you could just send a message error 5 or error, whatever error you're currently on. And then test them all, make sure they are working. After you've done that, go ahead and hit play, and we'll do them together. All right, welcome back. I hope that went well. If you have not already done this, if you have not already tried this, please stop the video and do that. You will learn so much more, and you will remember it so much better if you do it on your own, even if you do it wrong. Even if you fail and you beat your head against the wall and you don't make it work, that's fine. That's how we learn. There's nothing wrong with that. That is part of the learning process. And you will learn this a lot better, and you will remember it and be able to use it a lot more effectively if you try that. So if you have not already done that, bad on you, pause the video and do it. If you have, fine, let's go over it together. So there's a few different ways we could do this. There is the hipster programmer way, who wants to get the minimum number of lines possible, and then there's the way that I'm going to recommend that is actually easy to read. So I'll show you the hipster way real quick, just so you can see it, and then we're going to change it to the way that I recommend. So the hipster way is thinking to yourself, okay, I'm going to remove the upvote from each of these. No matter what happens, I'm going to remove the upvote. Okay. So I can just do that first. Comic.upvotes.splice, already upvoted, 1. Remember that whenever you use array.splice, you pass the index in 1 and it will simply remove that index. And then if it's up, all I want to do is response.message equals upvote removed. And if it's down, I want to comic.downvotes.push request.user.username, and then response.message equals changed to downvote. And if there's an error, response.message equals error, what are we on, 2? And then at the bottom, comic.save. So what's happening here, and again, I said this is the hipster way to do it, we are removing the use of the upvote, because if they've already upvoted and they click something, it doesn't matter what they click, because it's going to be removed whether they clicked up or down. So we're removing it, and then if it's up, all we have to do is set the message. If it's down, we're adding them to the array and then setting the message, and then finally we are saving the comic. That works. That works fine. That's does it in, what's that, 8 lines? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 lines, and you could shorten that more if you wanted to. That's fine. If you did that, great. Good on you. You did a good job. You were more efficient. You were drier. However, personally, I think it's better to not do it this way and add a couple more lines just so that you know, so it's easier to read. So what I'm going to recommend you do is go ahead and just do that in each one. Comic.upvotes.splice, already upvoted, and 1. Put that inside of there, and then comic.save, and then set the message. And do the same thing right down here. Pull it out, do that, comic.save, then set the message, and there. This is how many lines? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 2 more lines. And in my opinion, this is much easier to read. In my opinion. So that's what I recommend you do. And we're basically going to do the same thing down here below, just using downvotes instead of upvotes. So if they've already downvoted and they click up, comic.downvotes.splice, already downvoted, and 1. So that's going to remove it from the array. Comic.upvotes.push request.user.username. That's going to add them to the upvotes array. Comic.save. Notice I'm calling comic.save once after doing both of the updates. That way I'm only making one additional call to the database. You could do it run it after each one, but you would double or triple or quadruple or whatever the number of calls you're making to the database, which is very inefficient. Then response.message is going to be equal to changed to upvote. Else if they clicked down, then comic.downvotes, I'm just going to copy this. I don't know why I didn't do that. Copy paste that, remove them from the array, comic.save, response.message equals removed downvote. Then if there's an error, response.message equals, what are we on, error 3? Perfect. And finally, if there's another error, response.message equals error 4. So that should be all of them. We should be able to upvote and downvote and all that stuff. Let's try each one. No typos thus far. Let's refresh and log in. Go here, upvote, change to upvote, upvote removed. So let's refresh and see. Yep, nobody has voted. Then we can downvote. Downvote has been tallied. If we refresh, we can see it. Inside of downvotes, you have test. If I click it again, downvote has been removed. Nobody there. Let's say I upvote, and then I downvote, change to downvote, change back to upvote. So it looks like everything is working. We could test further to verify that, but it is working. So the last thing we need to do is git status, git add, there's only one thing, and then git commit, build out voting logic. Git push origin master, oops, not origin, O-R-I-G-I-N, master. And that is it for this video. In this video, we really just focused on building out the backend logic for our voting. This involved nested if statements, which can get confusing. Fortunately, we only had to go 2 levels deep, so it wasn't too bad. As part of this, we built a response object first, and we did this outside of these parentheses so that it's scoped outside and can still be accessed by the JSON down here. And then we just simply updated that inside of each of these if statements. We also looked at a way that we could make our code a little bit shorter, a little bit more dry, which generally speaking is a good idea. However, it only saved us 2 lines, and it made our code a little bit harder to read, and in my opinion, readability trumps brevity. That's, again, my opinion. That's not a set in stone type thing. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to help. Thanks.